The smell of salty air mixed with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee in Nima Washington's small apartment. The girl sat at her computer, hurriedly finishing an article about corruption in the Newport News city government. With this job, she was re-establishing herself at the local newspaper, the Daily Press, after a 3-year absence. Returning to her hometown had not been an easy decision. Richmond offered more opportunities for an ambitious journalist, but her mother's sudden illness had forced her to rethink her priorities. Nima paused, rereading the last paragraph. The lines blurred before her eyes from fatigue. She had hardly slept for the past 2 weeks, torn between the hospital where her mother was lying and her work. 3 months after her return, she finally felt that her life was getting back on track. Her mother was on the mend, and the editor-in-chief had started giving her serious investigative assignments instead of just notes on charity events. A chance glance at a framed photo on the table made her smile. In it, she was standing next to Darius Kincaid, their hands touching. The photo had been taken just a week ago, on his yacht during a trip to Chesapeake Bay. Nima hadn't expected meeting him to change her life so much. They met at a charity event in support of a children's cancer hospital. Nima was there as a journalist covering the event. Darius was one of the main sponsors. Tall, with a perfectly trimmed short beard and piercing brown eyes, he was a striking figure. When he spoke to her, Nima initially maintained a professional distance, asking questions for her article. But his easy charm and genuine interest in her work gradually broke down the barriers. "You're asking some very pointed questions for a social event, Miss Washington," he said with a smile. "I'm not a socialite, Mr. Kincaid," she replied, "and that makes you much more interesting than most of the people in this room." After that evening, he found her on social media and invited her to dinner. Nima hesitated. She knew that Darius owned several nightclubs in the city and had a reputation as a playboy, but her journalistic curiosity got the better of her. "It's just dinner," she told herself at the time. The first date turned into a second, then a third. Darius turned out to be an attentive conversationalist with a sharp mind and an unexpected sense of humor. He talked about his childhood in the rough neighborhood of Newport News, how he worked hard to get ahead and started his own business. His story seemed sincere and inspiring. Her phone vibrated, pulling Nima out of her memories. A message from Darius. "I miss you. See you tomorrow?" She smiled and sent a short reply. "Yes, I miss you too." They had been dating for 3 weeks, and Nima found herself thinking that she was falling in love. Of course, her journalistic skepticism prevented her from giving in completely to her feelings. She even did a little research on his business, but found nothing criminal. Darius was indeed a successful entrepreneur, owner of the Moonlight nightclub chain and the Golden Lagoon restaurant. Yesterday, after a romantic dinner on the roof of the Golden Lagoon, she posted their first photo together on her profile with the caption, "Sometimes life gives you unexpected gifts." In the photo, they were standing against the backdrop of the city's nightlights. Darius was hugging her waist, and she was smiling with an unusual expression of happiness. Friends immediately responded with comments. Most expressed joy and surprise. Many knew Darius as a successful businessman. "Wow, Nima, you've caught the most eligible bachelor in town. When's the wedding? He's so handsome, you're so lucky." Nima smiled shyly as she read the comments. It all seemed too fast, but at the same time right. That's why the message she received this morning from an unknown account threw her off balance. Nima opened it again. "Be careful with Darius Kincaid. He's not who he says he is. I know who he really is. For your own safety, stay away from him." Her first impulse was to delete the message as spam or someone's stupid joke. But something in the wording made her think. The account had been created recently, with no photos or friends, clearly fake. But why would someone create a fake account to warn her? Nima called Johnny Pearson, her best friend since childhood. They had been friends since elementary school, and although life had separated them, Johnny became an administrator at a city hospital, and Nima moved away to work in Richmond. Their bond remained strong. "It's probably some jealous ex," Johnny suggested when they met at a cafe during their lunch break, "or someone who's jealous of his success. A handsome, rich guy like him must have made some enemies." "Maybe," Nima said thoughtfully, stirring her tea. "But what if there's some truth to it? I hardly know anything about him. Janai rolled her eyes. You always complicate things. You finally meet a normal guy and you're already looking for a catch. Professional deformation? Nima smiled. Too many stories about people not being who they seem. Okay, Miss Detective. What are you going to do? Nothing for now. Maybe it really is just someone's stupid joke. But when Nima got home, there was a second message from the same anonymous account. You think I'm joking? Ask him about Tamara Bentley. Ask him what happened to her after she started asking too many questions about his business. His clubs are just a front. Dig deeper and you'll find out what he's really making his money from. But be careful. Very careful. The message made her heart race. A name, a specific accusation. This didn't seem like a random prank anymore. Nima opened her browser and typed in, Tamara Bentley Newport News. The first results came up blank, but then she found a small article in the archives of a local newspaper from last year. It reported the disappearance of a 24-year-old woman, Tamara Bentley, who was last seen leaving a nightclub in the city center. The name of the club wasn't mentioned, but Nima felt a chill run down her spine. Her journalistic instincts took over. She began digging deeper, checking all available sources of information about Darius Kincaid. On the surface, everything looked clean. A successful businessman, philanthropist, and participant in charitable events. But when she began looking into his past, she discovered some strange gaps. Before opening his first club 6 years ago, there was virtually no information about him, although he claimed to have worked in real estate. Nima contacted a former colleague who worked in crime reporting and asked her to check if the police had any information about Darius. The answer came an hour later. Officially clean, but there are rumors of ties to a gang that controls drug trafficking in the port. Nothing proven. In the evening, canceling her meeting with Darius on the pretext of work, Nima went to the area where his first club, Moonlight, was located. She talked to bartenders, waitresses, and security guards, cautiously asking questions about the owner and his business. Most spoke positively of him, a good boss who paid on time. But one of the waitresses, upon hearing the name Tamara Bentley, turned pale and said she had to get back to work. Nima followed her into the staff room. I know you know something, she said quietly. I'm a journalist. If Darius is involved in something, I can help expose it. The waitress, a young woman with nervous movements, looked around. You're seeing him, I saw the photo. If you're smart, stay away. Tamara was smart too, and where is she now? She whispered and quickly left. When Nima returned home, a third message was waiting for her. I see you've started digging. Good. But you're attracting attention. His people are watching the clubs. They know you're asking questions. Stop if you want to stay safe. Or meet me tomorrow at 5 p.m. at the Primorsko Cafe on the waterfront. I'll tell you everything I know. Come alone and make sure you're not being followed. The message made Nima look around nervously. She went to the window and looked out onto the street. It was a normal evening, with few pedestrians and parked cars. Nothing suspicious. But the feeling of unease wouldn't go away. She called Darius to hear his voice, to make sure her suspicions were unfounded. Hello, beautiful. His voice sounded as usual, warm and confident. How's your article coming along? Slowly, she replied, trying to sound casual. Listen, Darius, have you ever heard of a woman named Tamara Bentley? There was a short pause. No, I don't think so. Who is she? His answer sounded natural, but the pause. Nima wasn't sure if she had really heard a hesitation or if it was just her imagination. No one. Just a name from an old article I was reading, she lied. Listen, I'm really tired. Let's talk tomorrow, okay? After the call, Nima sat in the dark for a long time, thinking. Maybe she was just overreacting. Maybe the anonymous messages were someone's cruel joke or an attempt to ruin their relationship. But what if not? What if Darius really was hiding a dark secret? In the morning, after a sleepless night, she made a decision. She would meet with the anonymous informant and find out the truth. If the accusations turned out to be groundless, she would apologize to Darius and forget about it. If not, well, she was a journalist. Her job was to uncover the truth, no matter how unpleasant it might be. The day passed in tense anticipation. Nima called Janai and told her about her plans. Are you crazy? Her friend exclaimed. Meeting someone you don't know after receiving such threats? What if it's a trap? We're meeting in a public place, Nima replied. And I'll be careful, but I have to know the truth. At least tell me where and when the meeting is. If you don't call me an hour after the meeting, I'll go to the police. Nima agreed, and ending the conversation began to prepare for the meeting. She gathered all her notes about Darius and his business, prepared a voice recorder and a spare phone. Better to be safe than sorry. At 4:30, she left the house and headed for the waterfront. The Primorsko Cafe was a small establishment overlooking the bay, popular with tourists and locals alike. At that time of day, it was fairly empty, too late for lunch and too early for dinner. Nima chose a table by the window, from where she could clearly see the entrance and the street. She ordered a coffee and waited, glancing nervously at her watch. 5 o'clock, 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed. No one approached her. No one sent any recognizable signals. At 1:15, her phone vibrated. A new message from an anonymous account. Don't look back. You're being followed. The man in the blue jacket at the table in the corner is one of Darius's men. The meeting is canceled. Go home, gather your things, and leave town. I'll contact you through another channel. Nima felt a chill run down her spine. Carefully, trying not to betray her anxiety, she glanced around the cafe. There was indeed a man in a blue jacket sitting in the corner who seemed not to be paying any attention to her, but his gaze kept drifting in her direction. She paid the bill, left the cafe, and walked quickly home, constantly looking back and changing her route to make sure no one was following her. When she got to her apartment, she locked all the doors and called Janai. The meeting didn't happen, she said, trying to sound calm. But I got a warning that I'm being followed. I think I'd better leave town for a while until I figure out what's going on. Come to my place, Janai offered immediately. You can stay the night, and in the morning we'll decide what to do next. Thanks, but I'd rather not get you involved. I'll stay at a motel outside of town under a different name. It'll be safer for both of us. After the conversation, Nima quickly gathered the essentials into a small bag, her documents, money, laptop, and a change of clothes. Then she copied all her notes about Darius and information about Tamra Bentley onto a flash drive, which she hid in a secret pocket of her bag. Before leaving, she wrote a short note and left it in the desk drawer where Janai would look first if she came to her. If anything happens to me, look for information about the connection between Darius Kincaid and Tamara Bentley's disappearance. All the information is on the flash drive in my hiding place behind the bookcase. Be careful. Nima looked around the apartment once more, turned off the lights, and quietly left, locking the door behind her. She climbed down the fire escape, avoiding the main entrance, and headed for the taxi stand 2 blocks away. Janai Pearson dialed Nima's number for the 10th time, but her friend's phone was unavailable. She knew Nima was planning to leave, but she couldn't shake the feeling of unease. After work, Janai went straight to her friend's apartment. There was no answer when she rang the doorbell. Using the spare key Nima had given her years ago, Janai entered the apartment. It was quiet and empty inside. The drawers of the dresser were pulled out, some things scattered around, signs of a hasty departure. A desk lamp was burning, illuminating scattered papers with notes. Janai looked through them and froze when she saw the name Darius Kincaid next to notes about missing women and drug trafficking. Her gaze fell on an open desk drawer. Inside was a note written in Nima's handwriting. After reading it, Janai felt fear grip her heart. Something had happened to Nima, something serious, and judging by the note, she believed her life was in danger. Janai tried calling her friend again, but the phone was still unavailable. She stood in the middle of the empty apartment, not knowing what to do next. The only thing she knew for sure was that Nima was gone, and it had something to do with Darius Kincaid. The Newport News police station greeted Janai Pearson with cold fluorescent lights and the smell of old paper. The girl had spent a sleepless night wondering whether to go to the police. Nima's note and the items scattered around the apartment left no doubt that her friend truly believed she was in danger. "How can I help you?" asked the tired officer behind the desk. "I want to report a missing person." Janai tried to sound confident, but her voice trembled. "My friend, Nima Washington. She disappeared last night. It's been less than 24 hours. the officer remarked. But seeing the look on Janai's face, she softened. However, I can direct you to a detective. Please wait. 10 minutes later, Janai was sitting in a small office across from Detective Ezra Talabat, a tall man with piercing eyes and deep wrinkles on his forehead. Despite his stern appearance, his voice was soft as he asked Janai to tell him everything. Washington, Nima Washington, he repeated thoughtfully after listening to her story. The daughter of Isaiah Washington? Yes, did you know her father? Janai asked in surprise. We worked together when I was a young officer and he was a detective. He was a good man, fair. Ezra fell silent, lost in thought, then shook himself out of it. So you're saying she's a journalist and was investigating the connection between Darius Kincaid and the missing women? Yes, I found her notes. They mentioned someone named Tamara Bentley. Ezra frowned and opened a folder on his computer. Bentley disappeared about a year ago. Unsolved case. Last seen leaving the Moonlight nightclub owned by Kincaid. So there is a connection, Janai exclaimed. It's just a coincidence so far, Ezra said cautiously. But it's enough to start an investigation. Let's take a look at your friend's apartment. An hour later, they were standing in Nima's apartment. Ezra methodically examined every room, photographed scattered items, and studied the notes on the table. You said she mentioned a hiding place behind the bookcase? He asked, approaching a large bookcase in the living room. Janai nodded. The detective carefully moved the shelf and discovered a small niche in the wall. Inside lay a flash drive and a leather-bound notebook. This is her journalist's notebook, Janai explained. She always wrote down the most important information in it. She said she didn't trust electronic devices. Ezra opened the notebook and began to look through it. Most of the notes were written in illegible handwriting, with abbreviations and arrows connecting various facts. But gradually, a picture began to emerge. Nima suspected that Darius's nightclubs were a front for drug trafficking and possibly human trafficking. There are 2 other women mentioned here, Ezra said, pointing to an entry. Lauren Dawson and Crystal Morrow both have been missing for the past 2 years, and both were seen at Kincaid's clubs shortly before they disappeared. Do you think he kills them? Janai asked quietly. It's too early to draw conclusions, Ezra replied, but his face hardened. We need to check the flash drive. Are you staying here or coming with me to the station? I'm coming with you, Janai said firmly. Nima is my best friend. I want to know everything. When they returned to the station, Ezra plugged the flash drive into a computer. It contained photos of documents, screenshots of messages, and audio recordings of conversations. Nima had done some serious investigating. She recorded conversations with club employees, Ezra explained as he looked through the files. Here, the bartender hints at special parties in the VIP area where only select customers are invited and special goods are brought in. Drugs? Possibly. Or women. In the context of human trafficking, euphemisms like that are often used. Janai's phone vibrated. A message from Nima in the Messenger app. I'm safe. Don't worry. Don't look for me. Delete all my records. Forget about Darius. It's from her, Janai exclaimed, showing the phone to Ezra. The detective frowned. May I? He took the phone and studied the message carefully. The style isn't like her usual messages. Did you text her often? Almost every day, Janai nodded. And you're right. It doesn't sound like Nima. She always writes in detail, often using emojis. This message is too formal. I don't think it's her. Someone has accessed her account and is trying to divert suspicion. Janai paled. So she's really in danger. That only confirms the need for an investigation, Ezra said, returning the phone. I want you to reply to that message. Write something neutral like, okay, but where are you? I'm worried. Let's see what they say. Janai sent the message, but there was no reply. Detective Talabat, meanwhile, gave orders to launch an official investigation into the disappearance of Nima Washington and link it to the unsolved cases of Tamara Bentley, Lauren Dawson, and Crystal Morrow. I'm going to visit Darius Kincaid, he told Janai. You'd better go home for now. I'll contact you as soon as I have any news. No, Janai objected firmly. I can't just sit around and wait. There's someone who can help, a man who knew Nima's father and worked with him in the police force. Who? Lawrence Dexter. He left the police force a few years ago and became a private investigator. Nima once mentioned that he kept in touch with their family after her father died. Ezra frowned. Lawrence Dexter, not the best reputation. Rumor has it he has questionable methods and ties to the criminal underworld, but he knows things that official sources may not know, Jana insisted. I'll find him. Ezra hesitated, but then nodded. All right, but be careful and keep me informed. After leaving the police station, Janai headed straight for the small office on the outskirts of town where Larry Dexter's detective agency was located. The shabby door with a faded sign did not inspire confidence, but Janai knocked resolutely. Open, came a hoarse voice. Inside, the office was as unattractive as the outside. Old furniture, piles of papers, an ashtray full of cigarette butts. A sturdy middle-aged man with a short graying beard and alert eyes sat at the desk. Lawrence Dexter? Janai asked. Lori to my friends, he replied, gesturing for her to sit down. How can I help you, Miss? Pearson, Janai Pearson. I'm a friend of Nima Washington. At the mention of that name, Lori straightened up, his gaze sharpening. Isaiah's daughter? What happened to her? Janai briefly explained the situation. Lori listened intently, not interrupting, only occasionally making notes in his notebook. Kincaid, he said thoughtfully when Janai finished. I've been wanting to dig into this guy for a while. He's too clean for someone who came up in the ghettos. Will you help find Nima? Of course. Isaiah was my friend and mentor. I owe it to him and his family. Lori stood up and put on a worn leather jacket. My fee is $1,000 a day plus expenses, but I'll make an exception for you. Pay me when we find Nima. Thank you, Janai said with relief. Don't thank me yet. If Kincaid is really involved in the disappearances, it won't be easy. Lori took his car keys. You said Ezra Talabat is handling the case for the police. Yes, do you know him? We worked together when I was on the force. He's a good cop, principled, but too by the book, always follows the rules to the letter. In cases like this, sometimes you have to bend the rules. Janai nodded, not quite understanding what he meant, but feeling that she had made the right decision in turning to Lori. At that moment, Detective Ezra Talabat entered Darius Kincaid's luxurious office in the city center. Unlike most club bosses, Kincaid preferred to conduct business in a formal office setting. Minimalist design, expensive furniture, no unnecessary details. Detective Talbot. Darius rose from his desk, extending his hand. To what do I owe the honor? I'm investigating the disappearance of Nima Washington, Ezra replied, ignoring the outstretched hand. As I understand it, you were in a close relationship. Darius slowly lowered his hand, his face expressing genuine surprise. Nima disappeared? When? Last night. When did you last see her? The night before last. We had dinner at my restaurant, the Golden Lagoon. We planned to meet yesterday, but she canceled, saying she was busy with work. Darius looked alarmed. What happened? Is she okay? We don't know yet, Ezra replied dryly. Do you know what she's been working on lately? Some material on city corruption, I think. She didn't go into details. Darius sat back down at the table. Detective, I'm really concerned. If there's anything I can do... Are you familiar with Tamra Bentley, Lauren Dawson, or Crystal Morrow? Ezra asked sharply, watching for a reaction. Darius kept a straight face. The names sound familiar. They may have been to my clubs. We get thousands of visitors every month. All 3 women disappeared after visiting your establishments. That's unfortunate, but it's hardly relevant to me personally, Darius replied calmly. My clubs are public places. I can't be responsible for the fate of every visitor. Ezra studied Darius's face closely. He appeared confident, but there was a certain tension in the corners of his eyes, a barely perceptible insincerity in his tone. We have learned that your club's VIP areas host special parties with special goods, Ezra said, leaning forward. Would you like to comment? Darius froze for a split second, but quickly regained his composure. VIP clients receive premium service, the best alcohol, a special menu, exclusive performances by artists. Nothing criminal. We'll look into it, Ezra promised, standing up. I'll be back with more questions, Mr. Kincaid. In the meantime, please don't leave town. Of course, Detective. I'm fully cooperating with the police. Darius smiled, but his eyes remained cold, and I sincerely hope that Nima is all right. Leaving the office, Ezra called the station and requested a warrant to place Darius Kincaid and his properties under surveillance. His intuition told him that Kincaid was hiding something, but there wasn't enough evidence yet to arrest or search him. Lori Dexter took a more direct approach. After talking to Janai, he headed straight for the port area, where there were bars frequented by petty criminals and informants. In one of these establishments, a smoke-filled bar called the Anchor, he found Ray, an old informant he had worked with during his time in the police force. Kincaid? Dangerous man, Ray whispered, looking around nervously. They say he's got a real empire behind his pretty facade. Drugs, smuggling, maybe even human trafficking. I need concrete facts, Ray, Lori insisted. Places, names, dates. I heard he has a warehouse in the old industrial area. Officially, it's used to store club supplies, but they say something strange is going on there. Nighttime trucks, armed guards. Address? Pier 17, the old Continental shipping warehouse. Ray emptied his whiskey glass. And another thing. There was a girl working at his Moonlight Club, Tammy. She left a few months ago, really scared. She said she saw something she shouldn't have. Tammy? Tamara Bentley, perhaps? No, someone else. Tammy Rogers. She lives somewhere in the eastern part of town. Larry wrote down the information and left a bill on the table. Thanks, Ray. Keep your ears open. Lori spent the next few hours searching for Tammy Rogers. He went to several addresses, questioned neighbors, and checked databases through old contacts. Finally, in the evening, he found her, a young woman living in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, working as a waitress in a cheap cafe. I don't want to talk about Moonlight, Tammy said when Lori introduced himself and explained the purpose of his visit. That's in the past. A girl is missing, Nima Washington, Lori insisted. She may be in danger. Any information could help. Tammy hesitated, nervously twirling a strand of hair. I can't. He'll find me. Who? Darius? She flinched at the mention of the name. Don't say it out loud. He has ears everywhere. I can protect you, Lori promised, but I need to know what's going on in those clubs. Tammy stared at him for a long time, as if assessing whether she could trust him. Finally, she said quietly, Come back tomorrow at 2 o'clock. I'll be home alone. We'll talk then. Larry nodded, realizing that there was no point in pressing her further. Be careful until tomorrow. Don't tell anyone about our conversation. When he returned to his office, Lori found Janai and Detective Ezra waiting for him. Ezra looked displeased. You're interfering with an official investigation, Dexter, he began. I'm helping to find a missing girl, Lori retorted. And unlike you, I can afford to use methods that are unavailable to the police. What methods exactly? Ezra asked suspiciously. Let's just say I have contacts in circles far removed from the law. Lori sat down at his desk. What have you found out? Ezra reluctantly shared information about his meeting with Darius and the fact that the police had found a connection between several disappearances of women and Kincaid's clubs. Lori, in turn, told him about a warehouse in an industrial area and a former club employee with whom he had arranged to meet tomorrow. I'll check out that warehouse, Ezra said. I'll request a surveillance warrant. While you're getting a warrant, Kincaid could cover his tracks, Lori objected. I can scout it out tonight. Trespassing, Ezra shook his head. If you get caught, any evidence you find will be inadmissible in court. My goal is to find Nima, not gather evidence for a court case, Lori said firmly. If she's there, every hour could be crucial. Janai, who had been listening silently to their argument, suddenly intervened. Maybe you're both right. Detective Talbot will act officially, and Mr. Dexter, unofficially. The main thing is to find Nima. The men exchanged glances. That's against the rules, Ezra said. But I can pretend I don't know about your plans, Dexter. Just be careful and keep me in the loop. They agreed to meet the day after Lori's conversation with Tammy. Janai went home, exhausted by the events of the day. Opening the door to her apartment, she immediately checked her phone. There were no new messages from Nima's account. After taking a shower and changing her clothes, Janai sat down on the couch, looking through Nima's photos and messages from the past few weeks. Nothing had seemed out of the ordinary until the day Nima posted the photo with Darius. Her phone suddenly vibrated. It was a new message from Nima. Janai opened it with her heart in her throat. The message contained only a photo, a dark room with concrete walls, resembling a warehouse or basement. In the corner of the frame, she could see a hand with a distinctive bracelet that Janai had given Nima for her birthday. Under the photo was a short caption, "She's alive. For now, stop investigating or this will change." Janai was overcome with horror. That wasn't Nima. Someone had used her account to send a threat, but the photo was definitely of Nima's bracelet, which meant she was out there somewhere, in an unknown location, and her life was in danger. With trembling hands, Janai forwarded the message to Ezra and Lori, adding, "They know about the investigation, and they have Nima." Rain drummed on the roof of the old warehouse where Ezra Talabat and Lawrence Dexter had gathered. The tension between them was palpable, but the threatening message Janai had received forced them to put their differences aside. "I think the photo was taken in a warehouse in an industrial area," Lawrence said, pointing to the image on his phone screen. "It has the same layout as Pier 17. Ezra studied the photo closely. "I agree, but we need more than just suspicions. I won't get a search warrant without solid evidence." "While you're gathering that, Nima could be dead," Lori replied sharply. "I'll sneak in there tonight." "And get caught by Kincaid's security," Ezra shook his head. "We need a different approach." They exchanged glances that spoke of reluctant admission. They couldn't do this alone. "What do you suggest?" Lori finally asked. "Legal reconnaissance. I'll send a patrol car to watch the outer perimeter of the warehouse. At the same time, we'll check the property documents. If the warehouse belongs to a front company linked to Kincaid, that's something. What about Tammy Rogers? She can testify against Kincaid. Meet with her as planned, but don't push her. If she's scared, she might shut down again." They devised a plan Ezra would use official channels to gather evidence, while Lori would meet with Tammy and check his sources in the criminal underworld. Janai was tasked with deciphering Nima's remaining notes. The journalist might have left clues about the location. In the morning, Ezra received the results of his investigation. "The warehouse on Pier 17 belongs to Oceanic Investments," he told Lori over the phone. "It's an offshore company, but we traced it to another company, Kinetic Group, one of whose founders is Darius Kincaid." "So the warehouse really is his," Lori confirmed. "I'm meeting with Tammy in an hour. I'll let you know what I find out." Meanwhile, Janai was studying Nima's notebook in her friend's apartment. Most of the entries were written using journalistic shorthand and a personal code. It took her hours to begin to understand the system. "Tamara isn't missing. She's in hiding," Janai read in one of the entries. The contact confirmed that she saw live cargo being transported through the VIP entrance of the Moonlight Club. Direct connection to Pier 17. Another note mentioned a specific location. The warehouse basement is divided into sections. Security is weaker at the east entrance. The shift changes at 2 in the morning. Janai immediately called Ezra, but he didn't answer. She tried to contact Lori, but to no avail. Both were unavailable. Deciding to act on her own, she gathered all her notes and headed for Lori's office, where the three of them were supposed to meet after talking to Tammy. Meanwhile, Lori was pulling up to Tammy Rogers' house. The neighborhood was quiet, but something triggered his professional alarm. His former police instincts told him something was wrong. Approaching the apartment door, he saw that it was ajar. Pushing it open cautiously, Lori entered with his hand on his holster. "Tammy, it's Lawrence Dexter." Silence. The apartment was empty, but the signs of a struggle, an overturned chair, broken glass, spoke for themselves. Someone had beaten him to it. On the table was a note. "She's joined the others. You're next." Lori immediately left the apartment and called Ezra. "Tammy's been kidnapped. It's a warning to us. Kincaid knows we're getting close." "Damn!" Ezra cursed. "This changes everything. I'm requesting a search warrant for the warehouse immediately. The judge owes me a favor. I'll check my contacts about security at the warehouse. We'll need a floor plan." "Meet me at my office in an hour," Ezra said. "And Lori, be careful." At the police station, Ezra obtained a search warrant and began assembling a team for the operation. The information about Tammy's kidnapping was the last straw for the judge. Now they had legal grounds to search the warehouse on Pier 17. Janai arrived at Lori's office first, and finding no one there, decided to wait. Looking through Nima's notes, She came across a strange entry. Room 5. The key is the number in the photo. Check the date on the back. At first, it didn't make sense, but then she remembered the photo Nima kept in her wallet, a picture of her father in front of a police station. Janai returned to Nima's apartment and found the wallet in a desk drawer. The photograph was there, and on the back was the date, April 23, 2014. 23, Janai whispered. Room 5, key 23. When Lori and Ezra finally arrived at the office, Janai was already waiting for them with an important discovery. I deciphered Nima's notes. She mentions a specific room in the warehouse, room 5, and some kind of key with the number 23. It could be a code for a door or a safe, Ezra suggested. Good work, Janai. Lori spread a map of the port area on the table. My contact confirmed that the warehouse has heavy security, at least 8 men, but a shipment is expected to arrive at 11 p.m. today, and most of the guards will be busy at the west entrance. This is our chance, Ezra nodded. We'll carry out the operation tonight. The official capture team will wait outside, but the 3 of us will go in first, so as not to scare them and endanger the hostages. I'm coming with you, Janai said firmly. No way, the 2 men replied simultaneously. I have information from Nima that may be useful, she insisted. I'll stay behind, I promise. After much debate, they reluctantly agreed, but on the condition that Janai remain in the car until they received the signal. The night was moonless, which played into their hands. 3 figures cautiously approached the east side of the warehouse. According to Nima's notes, security here was minimal, especially during the arrival of shipments at the west entrance. Ezra was the first to spot a guard smoking by the door. One precise shot from a silenced pistol, and the man fell, struck by a tranquilizer. Clear, Ezra whispered. Lori, check the lock. The door was locked with an electronic combination lock. Lori entered 23, but to no avail. Try 0523, Janai suggested over the radio from the car. Room 5, key 23. The lock beeped and lit up green. The door opened. Inside, the warehouse was divided into sections by metal partitions. Dim light barely illuminated the concrete floor. They moved forward cautiously, following the signs on the walls. Section A. Section B, Ezra whispered, checking the map. We need room 5 in Section C. Another guard appeared in the hallway. Lori quickly knocked him out with the butt of his pistol and dragged him into the shadows. Hurry up! They'll notice he's missing soon. Finally, they reached the door marked C5. Another combination lock. Ezra entered 0523, and the door opened. Inside, a shocking sight awaited them. The room was equipped like a prison cell, with bars dividing the space into cells. Nima was sitting in one of them, and Tammy Rogers was in another. 2 other cells were occupied by other women, probably the ones who had disappeared. Nima! Ezra rushed to the bars. We'll get you out of here. Be careful, Nima warned in a weak voice. There are surveillance cameras. They already know you're here. Lori examined the locks on the cells. Standard mechanical locks. I can pick them. While he worked on the locks, Ezra contacted the rescue team outside, confirming the presence of hostages. Proceed with the operation immediately. One by one, the locks gave way to Lori's skilled hands. First they freed Nima, then the other women. They all looked exhausted, but there were no serious injuries. We have to go, Ezra said, supporting the weakened Nima. This way. They headed for the exit, but an unpleasant surprise awaited them in the corridor. 3 armed guards with pistols at the ready. Drop your weapons! One of them shouted. Ezra and Lori exchanged glances, assessing the situation. They had no intention of surrendering, but it was too dangerous to engage in a firefight. There were too many innocent people nearby. Suddenly, a loud siren sounded. The capture team had begun their assault from the west. The guards were distracted for a moment, and that was enough. Ezra and Lori opened fire simultaneously, taking down 2 of them. The third managed to hide around a corner. Hurry, Ezra commanded. To the east exit. They led the women through the corridors, trying to avoid running into the guards. The sounds of gunfire and screams came from all sides. The police operation was in full swing. Finally, they reached the door they had entered through. Outside, Janai was waiting for them, having disobeyed the order to stay in the car. Nima! She rushed to embrace her friend, tears of joy streaming down her face. You're alive! Thanks to you, Nima smiled weakly. You didn't give up. Ezra organized the evacuation of the rescued women to a safe place while the operation continued. The police methodically cleared the warehouse, arresting everyone involved. In one of the warehouse offices, they discovered a veritable treasure trove of evidence. Documents on goods deliveries, financial reports indicating money laundering, and lists of VIP party clients. Everything pointed to Darius Kincaid as the head of a criminal organization involved in human trafficking and drugs. This is enough to put him behind bars for many years, Ezra said, looking through the documents. Nima, who had already received first aid, joined them. There should be a safe behind the painting in the office. The code is the same, 0523. It contains flash drives with video recordings of Darius's meetings with high-ranking clients. Sure enough, they found not only flash drives in the safe, but also cash, forged documents, and black accounting records. How did you know the code? Ezra asked. The woman who warned me about Darius told me, Nima replied. Her name is Amara Wilson. She is a former victim of Kincaid who managed to escape a year ago. Since then, she's been tracking his activities, trying to gather evidence. Amara Wilson, Ezra said thoughtfully. Why does that name sound familiar? Because she was listed as missing in the documents, Nima explained. But she actually created a new identity and worked in one of Darius's clubs under a different name, gathering information. She saw my photo with him on social media and decided to warn me. Where is she now? Lori asked. She's in a safe place. She'll contact you when she's ready to testify. While they were talking, the operation was completed with complete success. 15 people were arrested, including Darius's closest associates. He himself tried to escape on a yacht, but was intercepted by the Coast Guard in the bay. When the police car brought the handcuffed Darius to the warehouse, his gaze met Nima's. She expected to see anger or hatred, but his eyes showed only cold indifference. You picked the wrong guy to date, reporter, he said with a smirk. And you're not the girl to kidnap, Nima replied, surprised at her own calmness. Darius was taken away, and the rescued women were sent to the hospital for examination. Nima insisted on being released after the initial examination. She wanted to start working on her article immediately. You could have been killed, Janai objected. You need to rest. I'll rest when I finish the article, Nima replied stubbornly. This will be the most important piece of my career, and I have to do it, for Tamara, Tammy, and all the other women who have suffered at the hands of Kincaid. Ezra offered her police protection, but Nima refused. The best protection right now is publicity. When the article comes out, everyone will know what happened. That will keep me safer than any bodyguard. 3 days later, Nima Washington's expose, The Dark Side of Nightlife, How Respectable Businessman Darius Kincaid Built an Empire on Human Trafficking, was published in the daily press. The article had the effect of a bombshell. The editorial office phones were ringing off the hook, and other media outlets picked up the story. A week later, Nima, Jani, Ezra, and Lori met in a quiet cafe away from the city center. Despite the successful conclusion of the case, the atmosphere remained tense. Darius will be in court next month, Ezra said. With the evidence we've gathered, he's facing life in prison. What about his accomplices? Nima asked. Most of them have been arrested, but not all, Ezra admitted. Some managed to escape. We're continuing the search. What about the high-ranking clients mentioned in the documents? Asked Janai. Ezra and Lori exchanged glances. The investigation is ongoing, Ezra replied evasively. It's a sensitive issue. Delicate? Nima exclaimed indignantly. These people bought women as commodities. They must be held accountable under the law, regardless of their status. And they will be, Lori assured her, but it will take time. People like that have influence and resources to protect themselves. Nima thoughtfully twirled her coffee cup. You know, I thought I would feel satisfied after the article was published. But now I realize this is just the beginning. The roots of the problem run deeper than one criminal, even one as powerful as Darius. You're right, Ezra nodded. There's always a whole system behind a business like this. We've cut down one tree, but the forest remains. What are you planning to do next? Janai asked her friend. Continue the investigation. Nima replied resolutely. Now that I know how deep this rabbit hole goes, I can't just stop. Someone has to tell the truth. It could be dangerous, Lori warned. Darius still has friends out there. I know, Nima looked at the three of them gratefully. But I have friends too. Good friends. They nodded in understanding. Each of them had been changed in their own way by this case. Ezra had gained a new respect for Lori's unconventional methods. Lori had recognized the value of an official investigation. Janai had discovered a determination and courage she never knew she had. And Nima had found her calling, exposing those who considered themselves untouchable. As they said goodbye at the cafe exit, Nima noticed a black car with tinted windows slowly driving by. For a moment, a familiar face flashed in the window, one of Darius's assistants who had escaped arrest. She could have been scared, but instead, she felt determined. The Darius Kincaid case was closed, but there were other criminals in the city who thought they were beyond the reach of the law. And she, Nima Washington, was going to prove them wrong.